And with regard to age, and polling data, I noticed the polling data I keep hearing about is that I'm between 42 and 46% favorable rating, et cetera. And but everybody running for re-election in this time has been in the same position. There's nothing new about that. You're making it sound like Biden's really underwater. Things are moving, and the reason I'm running again is there's a job to finish. I respect them taking a hard look at it. I take a hard look at it as well. I took a hard look at it before I decided to run, and I feel good. I feel excited about the prospects, and I think we're on the verge of really turning the corner in a way we haven't in a long time.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my hand.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. You found the Backstory Podcast number 153, No Boomers. I'm joined today by Francis Paul Rip, consumer advocate down in Fairhope.
And I will be in and out judging on the internet.
And Mr. Mosley, our journalist in residency in Birmingham. What's going on up there in Moody today?
It's sunny and a little bit windy. It rained hard last night. Things are looking good here.
All right. So he says he may not be the only one who can beat former President Trump, but he has to finish the job. So I don't know if y'all noticed this or not.
No comment.
We have all this
same old.
We have all this technology with micro transmitters and communication devices, and for some reason Biden has like 1984 tech in his ear. And of course, this is nothing new. Everybody remembers Ronald Reagan, our teleprompter president, and they got something similar going on with a very lovable actor across the pond right now. So there's your image, and then there's reality. And the Hunter Biden laptop things coming to light. There's, how the hell do you bury the crack pipe and all that kind of stuff. And then on the flip side, Mr. Rip, you got Miss Carroll's defamation and rape case going on against Mr. Trump right now up in Manhattan. And there's a special, probably a 30-minute video if y'all want to go watch it over at CBS News, what to know about the 4 criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump. Yeah. So, do either of you have any comment about this show going on at the national level? I mean, honestly, these are the best 2 people we can put forward. I seriously doubt it.
No. I mean, there are literally millions of Americans that probably would be better to be president the next 4 years than either of those 2 old guys. But we already know
nobody's stepping up.
Yeah, nobody's stepping up, and nobody wants someone to step up, apparently. We already know that Hunter Biden, probably peddled influence, certainly was addicted to cocaine and other substents. And
whores.
Yeah, and his relationship,
his dead brother's widow. Shit. I mean, you really couldn't write a shit show of a script that no one would make this movie because it's too unbelievable.
Yeah, that the president's son was a complete
International
walkout as a human
sellout.
being. But Joe Biden loves him, and the American people are already aware of that. That there are weird allegations against Donald Trump from all kinds of women. I kind of think the people already know about that. Maybe I'm too old and too old school. I would have thought any of that would have disqualified someone for governor.
It's been a while since somebody bowed out because of, John Merrill didn't bow out. Who's the last real famous person to bow out over a sex scandal? I think it was Senator Franken, wasn't it? Big time Democrat. Remember when he got accused
there was
misogynist
before Denny Hastert, there was that Texan that was the going to be the Speaker of the House. He may have been the Speaker of the House for like a month. He bowed out in the late 90s. I'll think of his name in a minute.
What about monkey
business?
business?
It was revealed that, he had some dalliances outside of his marriage. And, this was when the Clinton,
right,
using the White House as the bordello, allegations were out there.
You reckon Britney Spears ever got snuck in through the basement? I bet she did.
Britney Spears.
All right, so Brandon, you wrote an article this week. I want to bring it back down to some things going on. Of course, the legislature's in session, and everybody should be deathly afraid of what these 135 morons can get up to.
140.
140. I wasn't counting the people over 100. So the House Democrats urge passage of strong gun law to curb gun violence, not more prisons. And this is the same old story I hear all the time out of Democrats. Why should this be any different? Just because we just had a mass shooting in Mayberry, Alabama, Dadeville.
Yeah, they had a press conference in the State House, and I was in attendance. And, they pressed, Ensler, I think, has introduced like 6 bills. We're going to outlaw those weird Glock switches that allow you to, just pull the trigger and bullets just start shooting out of your Glock, without having to pull the trigger again.
Okay, so I got a question for you on the Glock switch thing, okay? So let's just say Harry has all kinds of stuff like a ham radio that it would be illegal for me to use without an FCC license. But if there is no government and there's Armageddon, I really don't give a damn. Ain't nobody going to show up and arrest me for using a ham radio, right? A handheld, I can't remember what it's called. But I bought it before the plague thinking, who knows what could happen. Maybe I want to talk to somebody in Las Vegas. He might be the only guy left alive in North America, right? Okay, so let's just say that somebody says, hey, man, here's a Glock chip. You could put in your gun and make it fully automatic. Is it possession, or does it have to be installed in the gun for it to be illegal? I mean, because you're just talking about a little piece of plastic that you print on a 3D printer.
Yeah, I haven't, studied that legislation close enough to be able to answer that question, whether it's just possession or is it installing. I would think it's written in such a way that it is possession. As you and I both know, it wouldn't take us 10 minutes to install the Glock switch on our Glock if we wanted to do so.
I'd say I think all you do is you remove the slide, take that sear plate off, and slide that other one in, and then put your slide back on. It's simple as field stripping.
10 seconds, much less 10 minutes.
Right. But I think I could do it like Forrest Gump. No time at all. So what do you think, Paul?
I think something's got to be done. The number one reason children are getting killed is guns. It's clear we got to do something. I don't know what, but something has to happen. You can't keep, the fact that you have children going to school with that fear, I would have never thought I saw that in my lifetime. That would never have occurred to me.
Yep.
So something's got to be done. And then you also have compounded the problem of the amount of illegal arms that are going into Mexico. And that's because of the United States laws.
The silly war on drugs that we've been losing for 100 years. Yeah, I agree. So,
But,
Paul,
they want to outlaw ghost guns where I can't, buy the parts to a gun and then put it together myself. Make that illegal because there's no serial.
so anybody that is a gun guy knows you buy the receiver, and the receiver is the part that when the manufacturer makes it, he has to tell the federal government, the ATF, that he manufactured that gun, and then he transfers it and sends in an FFL on that. Right? That's the part of the gun that's the gun. It's the lower receiver.
Yeah, but there
And
are
the rest of it,
people,
you just buy
especially
the
now that
upper
we
and-
have, now that we have 3D printers and that sort of technology that are making outlaw receivers. I think this is illegal federally, but they
Right.
want a state law. Now, my question to them is, we can't stop anything from crossing a state line because it's interstate commerce. So what's a state law really going to accomplish?
Nothing. That they just like passing laws, man. It will accomplish nothing. That's 90% of the point, is that we got to say I passed a bill to outlaw ghost guns. Well, good for you, Mr. Legislature. So, Brandon, you wrote an article this week about Ivey fires early childhood education secretary Barbara Cooper. Can you tell us the who shot John on that deal?
As you know, there's a divisive concepts bill that's been introduced in the legislature the last 2 years. That was originally, against critical race theory, and that's sort of, the gist of it. And everyone was saying, well, we don't need this law because critical race theory is not being taught in K through 12.
Right.
And lo and behold, somebody pulls up a resource manual for pre-K teachers of all things that, has some lines in it that, basically regurgitates critical race theory, as well as some stuff about, making the pre-K classroom LGBTQ plus, affirming or, friendly or whatever. And Ivey reached out to Barbara Cooper and said, hey, I saw this textbook. It's got some weird stuff in it that not comfortable with. Can you send me a memo disavowing the text and telling all our pre-K classrooms not to use it? And apparently Ms. Cooper got upset and submitted her resignation rather than the memo that Kay asked for. And the governor said, okay, bye.
Wow.
I don't know that's exactly how it went down, but the way it was explained to us in the press through the governor's office, we're just hearing the one side. I don't know that Kay really had a choice once Cooper offered her resignation, but to accept it.
So fired is kind of...
Fired would be accurate. You can
Fired
keep
would
the
be
textbook and Mrs. Cooper, or if you want to get rid of this textbook, Mrs. Cooper's going to go. So the governor said, bye.
We strongly encourage the governor to reconsider her position and reinstate Dr. Barbara Cooper, by Anthony Daniels and Bobby Singleton.
Yeah, the Democrats were, a little bit upset because Barbara Cooper, is an African American and probably the most prominent African. Well, there's, her and Fitzgerald Washington over at Labor in the Ivey administration, and she's gone. So they're understandably upset, especially since all this happened so quick. We thought pre-K was doing wonderful until it wasn't.
This is a bill that's very interesting to me, Brandon, and I'd like you to talk about it for as long as you have knowledge. So the legislature could address judge shortage this year, Speaker Nathan Ledbetter says. So what all did he tell you about his plans to get us some more judges down here?
Well, the judges have been asking for more judges for at least 5 years. The state general fund budget came out of committee last week, and it was passed on the House floor with only a $3 million increase for the entire judiciary system, which obviously is not enough money to add judges. I made that point in my article looking at, each line item of the general fund budget. And I think it was Representative Wadlin Gavan of Birmingham, who is an attorney, asked Rex Reynolds, who's the budget chair when this was on the floor, why did we not address judges? And at that point, Rex said that I'm meeting with the judges tomorrow. The Judge Association is going to be in town. I'm going to have a meeting with them. There are 3 bills in the Senate that increase the number of judges. I believe Senator Gavan of Huntsville and Senator Barfoot of Montgomery and maybe Senator Smitherman of Birmingham all have separate bills. Anyway, he was going to put all 3 of those bills before the judges, and that would be what advanced. And then the Senate will fix the judges' issue when the budget gets to them. I asked the speaker about it. Ledbetter said, yeah, it's time to fix the judges. We tried reallocation, which was passed in 2015, which meant every time, a judge dies or resigns or retires in a area of the state like the Black Belt or Birmingham that really is not growing at all, we're going to move that judgeship to Huntsville or Lee County or Baldwin County, where there's a critical judge situation because, the population has moved there. Like the speaker told us, there's been like 3 judges that have left vacancies, and those vacancies were filled instead of being reallocated.
All right. So let me stop you for a second and just spitballing here. The general fund budget for the state of Alabama this year is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5-3 billion.
In excess of $3 billion.
Okay, and
we did the reallocation.
1.8. We were floating along 1.8 for a long time.
Yeah, when we were doing reallocation, remember we had just $1.6 billion in the general fund budget, and we had to go raid money out of the Alabama Trust Fund to make up the difference and get us barely to 1.65. So we have a whole lot more money than we had in 2015. And we're throwing money at mental health. Obviously, prisons are getting a 10%. They probably need bigger than that. Boost over last year where they already got a previous increase, and Medicaid's getting more money. And we're, giving, pay raises to employees, and nobody thought in the House that we need to fix the judges issue. Hopefully the Senate will, get us some judges, whether that's going to be 5 judges, 10 judges, or 20 judges.
Right.
I don't know.
So let me make my point, okay? So the 11 judges, so Jefferson County has 27 circuit judges. 27. And they've lost all this population, so they have a surplus of 7.98 judgeships. Not quite 8, 7.98. Madison County only has 7 circuit court judges and needs 3 more, 3.25 more. Mobile County only has 11 and has a deficit of 2.63. Baldwin County has 5 circuit judgeships and has a deficit of 2.65. I'd say we need at least 4 more. So what do you think the cost of 11 new judges is? Whole kit and caboodle, staff, all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's more than $1 million a judge.
Okay,
it's
half $500,000 a judge. Is $4.95 million for the 11 new judgeships, circuit judgeships, and the 8 district judgeships is $2.8 million. So you could shut all this shit up with $10 million. You can't parse $10 million out of this $3 billion budget. That's a bunch of bull crap.
In a year where the budget increase is over $100 million. I think it's $150 million more than we had last year, which was the biggest state general fund budget in the history of the state.
Right. And we can't fix the simple problem of, anyway.
Yeah, I talked with the Chief Justice, I want to say 3 years ago, in 2021, and they had done a report for the judiciary saying they needed 21 judges.
So you know how the nuts have taken over the nut house? They can't address something like judgeships, but this is priority legislation. So in some hypothetical situation where the sheriff dies, quits, or has been charged with a serious crime, currently the coroner takes over as sheriff until the governor appoints somebody or they decide to have a special election. Now let me think. That's a state executive office. A lot of people forget about that. So tell me about this very important bill that's going to cover this gap, this hypothetical gap that we're going to have. Of course, at the rate sheriffs are going to jail, maybe it's something we need to address.
Yeah, we had this
Limestone,
happen.
Clark.
We had this happen just a few months ago in Autauga County, where the old sheriff, who looking back on it probably shouldn't have, ran for re-election. And he was reelected. He beat out, the deputy that challenged him, in the Republican primary. And then, of course, was, in that very Republican county, easily won re-election in the general. He didn't live long enough for that term to even begin. And so suddenly we're like, the coroner is the acting sheriff, which I'm having to explain to my readers why a coroner is running a sheriff's department. But that's because they did that in 1852, and some of the counties probably had one sheriff and one coroner in 1852.
That's right. God, don't you wish we could go back to those good old days?
Riding horses and carrying, well, they were probably still carrying flintlocks in 1852.
I guarantee you.
But, that law, parts of that law have changed, but the succession has not. And they're like, it's kind of goofy.
I don't think so. They're a bonded public elected official. And we need somebody to fill in the meantime. I look at things from a liability perspective, right? The number one liability that the county has are the prisoners in that jail. And the second biggest liability, potentially, if qualified immunity and all this other stuff doesn't apply, are these public servants that they turn loose with very little training and automatic weapons and vehicles made to ram yours off the road. Yeah, that's where the liability is. So
yeah, well,
I think having an elected official in there as opposed to the chief deputy or this 3 sheriff panel decides, or what do they come up with here?
It's like, God forbid something happens to the sheriff and the coroner takes over. And in that moment of time, you have a school shooting where the sheriff / coroner is on the scene ordering his forces to do what they've got to do. I agree with the legislature. I don't know why this hasn't been fixed. Wasn't fixed 90 years ago, but this legislation just says whoever the number 2 guy is in the sheriff's department, even our little counties have a chief deputy now, captain or someone, that person automatically becomes the sheriff.
That's a terrible idea. Horrible idea.
Until the governor appoints a sheriff.
Nope. He's not an elected official. He's not bonded. He's not sworn to office.
But a coroner hasn't had a post training.
Even better. So to your point about there ain't a sheriff's department in Alabama that doesn't have 10 deputies and 10 jailers. Yeah. Is there?
I mean, they have a big staff.
Yeah,
And
they all do.
is a part-time dude.
They all do, and they all have
County.
specialty. They all have specialities in their job and what their job is, and the idea that this elected person just knows because they're the sheriff and they've been to the FBI academy how to run a sheriff's department, that's poppycock. I'll take a guy that's been running a damn Kinko's down here for 4 or 5 years and put him in there and let his people do their jobs, let the head jailer run the jail, let the chief deputy run the investigations and the patrol patterns and all that kind of stuff. A good sheriff should be an advocate. The idea that they're out there solving crimes and actually putting handcuffs on people is a bunch of bullcrap. And you know it as well as I do. There's very few counties.
When Marty Coles was the sheriff of our county, he actually shot someone.
I'm sure he's been waiting all his life to do that, Brandon.
I'm just saying, sheriffs do make on-the-ground decisions that I don't think a coroner is necessarily trained or ready to do.
Well, they better be when they run for coroner. They know there's a possibility they might have to fill the sheriff's shoes, and God forbid he dies or, God help us, there's actually an investigation into one of them. The chief deputy, or, the sheriff who appoints the chief deputy knows that if the worst happens, the chief deputy could be the sheriff. You're assuming that these people have good intentions and are above board. Listen, I've lived here in Baldwin County my entire life, and there has been a drug trade in Baldwin County my entire life. There's been a money laundering outfit here my entire life. There's no way that this could have gone on without the help or complicity of longtime law enforcement members around here. Just no way that it could continue, Brandon, unless you just think they're totally incompetent.
Again, whether it's the coroner or the chief deputy, whoever is brought up to sheriff is going to be replaced when the governor makes her
in Baldwin County, it doesn't really matter because the only person who can arrest the sheriff is the coroner, and the coroner works for our sheriff at his funeral home as an undertaker. So our sheriff's in the clear. It doesn't really matter what he does. But some of these other places, I can see the coroner being a person of respect in the community who can hold down the damn fort until Meemaw comes out of cryo sleep and decides to, one more time, to my point. All these people are hanging around too long. We need some new leadership and new blood, and it doesn't need to be, somebody on her staff that she passes the torch to, like, oh, I don't know, it got passed to Joe Bonner, and now it's been passed to Katie Britt. We need somebody from the legislature to step up and run for governor.
Well, the people of Alabama had like 20 people to select from in this if you count Democrats, Republicans.
Okay, let's talk about this.
Independents, whatever.
Governor Ivey refused to debate anybody, which is what Joe Biden and Trump have both said. They don't intend to debate anyone in their own party. They just expect us to bend over and give them the nomination. Of course, Alabama, we were completely fine with Governor. Everybody voted for Governor Ivey, even though she refused to debate anyone. I don't see where. I don't know. I can't believe that I live in a state where someone can have the highest elected office and not have to debate anyone. Of course, the Attorney General didn't debate anybody either last go round, did he?
No, and if I'm advising a campaign now, if I'm ahead, I'm not debating. I mean, there's no history to show you gain anything by debating. And if you flub up in the debate and have one bad line, it's going to appear in a 30-second commercial attack ad against you. I mean, if I'm advising campaigns, we don't debate. We do all our talking on little 30-second ads that we draw up and have scripted, and it's been $1 million putting them on television.
Okay, so Brandon, back to my point. What are we doing fooling with this sheriff stuff when we get, we don't have enough judges? We don't have, we've got a $3 billion budget. It can't make a $10 million appropriation every year to fix this problem in these counties that are important to our state economy, right? These are counties that are growing. Madison, Baldwin.
There's only about 8 counties that's really pushing the growth of the state. You take Baldwin, you take Madison, Limestone, Lee, and Shelby off the books, like Elmore, we're either flat or negative. And those counties haven't, their population's booming, but, the number of judges are, stuck back in like the 80s.
Well, everything
and we're more
Alabama
litigious
stuck
than
in the
we were,
80s.
Back in Granddad's day.
All right, well, enough of the sheriff stuff. So Alabama shuts down all state waters for shrimping. So this happens every year. This was a really good article too, by the way. The Department of Conservation and Natural Resources comes in and shuts down shrimping except for Terry's Cove. There's a little place you can make a 15-minute bait drag and keep 5 pounds of live shrimp to fish with, and also a place in Wolf Bay. Other than that, I don't know what the hell you guys do over there at Dauphin Island. I don't know where that little area is, but other than that, you cannot shrimp until, I think they usually do it about the second weekend of June or the first weekend of June. They'll open shrimping up, and you go out there with a 16-foot net and you can load up 4 or 5 ice chests in a day.
Yeah, this is just a little deal we do just about every year now to let the little shrimp that are spawning and coming out of their little nesting spots to get a little bit bigger before they got to worry about fishermen. And since shrimp, we like to eat them, but, there's umpteen species of all kinds of, game fish and non-game fish and whatnot eat shrimp. It just helps the whole deal if we just shut it down for about 4 weeks, let those shrimp get some size on them, take the little pressure off of them. And that's what this is. I don't think we're worried about the population of the shrimp or, the sizes or anything. It's like, hey, we're just going to have a
Brandon,
shut down at the key point of the, of the year for it.
So do you remember the BP oil spill 2010 and they wouldn't let us catch the fish or eat them for like 2 years? Man, yeah. I went out there diving and the damn red snapper were like mosquitoes. They just everywhere. And so
I don't think we understand how much pressure we put on those fisheries.
Oh, we do. And you could like I said, you can wipe them out. The one good thing we got going for sports divers and along the Gulf Coast is also a terrible nuisance, and that's the lionfish. And I wish Paul was here to talk about it because he's shot more fish underwater than I've shot birds in the air. And anyway, those lionfish rodeos, you go down on the wreck and there'll be 50 of them sitting around, and you just go over and get them with your sling and stick them in. They make specialized little containers so you don't get finned to death. I'm pretty sure they got some pretty bad neurotoxins in their fins or whatever, but nothing eats them, and they're just all over the place. So and anyway,
they're extremely voracious. They eat a lot.
And I hope but the good news is they deep water fish and reef fish. They don't come up in the bay, and they have to have high salinity water. So we don't have to worry about them coming up in the river and eating up all the little crabs and shrimp before they can get big. But when they go offshore, just like everything else that goes out there, it's free game. So we're catching them, when they mature and before they move offshore. A lot of our commercial and recreational shrimpers, and you have to have a license to pull a shrimp net in Alabama. So don't go to an estate sale and buy a shrimp net and think you're gonna go shrimping. All right, some big news for Baldwin County. Baldwin County Commission set to undergo seismic shift if one state senator gets their way. So guess which state senator this is?
Would that be Chris Elliott?
These people and meet these people and talk to these people, yet we've treated them poorly, which I think I find offensive and I take personally.
Mm-hmm. So The current members of the Baldwin County Commission are under a bill proposed by State Senator Chris Elliott. The Baldwin County Commission would add a fifth commissioner that acts as a commission chair, which most of the current commissioners opposed. Left, Jeb Ball, Billy Joe Underwood, Skip Gruber, and Matthew McKenzie. Back in 1980-something, early 80s, there was a federal lawsuit saying that the structure of the county commission had a disparate effect on the racial minorities in Baldwin County. So instead of entering into a consent decree or anything else, the Baldwin County Commission had the state legislature pass a law to say that we're going from 4 commissioners to 7. And we had those 7 commissioners, and we went out and hired an a county administrator to come in and run things. And that was all knocked off kilter by all this development and developer money and certain schemes like Baldwin County Sewer Service. And so anyway, they toppled the regime. There was I think Myron Thompson reversed his ruling from the 80s, and all the commissions went back to their original form of government they had on the books when the law went into effect, or when the federal consent decree went into effect. So they went back to 4 commissioners elected by district but voted on at large. And there's been no reapportionment. If you look at the number of people that live in Jeb Ball's district, it's a lot lower than the number of people that live in Skip's district or Billy Joe's, and especially McKenzie's. I think he's way overpopulated. So they need to do a reapportionment. If they want to do something, they need to change the form of government to a commission manager form of government instead of an elected executive. You know, that's extremely regressive in the grand scheme of things, to have for the commission to decide that they want to have an elected chairman full time who will, basically be the master of, I don't know, what's the county budget up to? A couple $100 million?
This is how we did it in St. Clair County. I don't know, about 18 years ago, where we had, commissioners like y'all have, where the whole county votes on them, but they represent districts. And then we decided to add, instead of a county manager, we have an elected county commissioner who works full time for about $100K. That's been, worked okay for us. I'm guessing that's the model that Elliott wants for your county now. Almost exactly the same regimen.
So look, there is a professional career path, okay, which I took. I went to Auburn, got an undergraduate in public administration, went to Troy, got a master's degree in public administration. I kind of apprenticed, working for these different managers in different places, and then I became a manager myself, right? So there are all kinds of manager, positions and people that we could pull from, and we're not talking an absorbent amount of money. $125,000 is a lot of money, but you're not saving money. You're going to pay either a county manager or a chairman of the county commission, right?
Most of them pretty much draw about the same salary.
So Morrow, Oregon, they're paying their county manager $126 to $175, and with a population of 12,000 people and 5 incorporated municipalities, 11 unincorporated communities. I mean, I'm just giving you a for instance. I mean, let's go poach the county manager of Scambia County, Florida.
I can remember when Jefferson County had 5 elected county commissioners. Now, they did vote in districts. It's not county-wide. And then whoever could come up with 2 other commissioners to support them was then made the chairman of the county. and they went bankrupt. They eventually had to switch to the county manager form. They brought in Mr. Patellos, who did a fantastic job getting them out of bankruptcy to, fix that mess that they made out of their their lack of a manager. But every county does it a little bit different. I mean, I think Blount County still uses the old where the probate judge is also the chairman of the commission, and then there's 2 part-time commissioners who.
Wow, that's really crooked as hell. That can get really crooked.
We
real
had
fast.
that back in like the 60s here in St. Clair County. You don't want to go there.
So Shelby County has a commission manager form of government, and they're probably the gold standard. And it's really weird where the probate judge, he's actually in charge of tags. The probate judge has surrendered that to the county manager and some other things. Of course, planning and development is a big issue, or was up there.
Honestly, I don't even know who the top civil employee of St. Clair County is. I mean, if they have any power, I don't know what it is. Because basically the chairman pretty much runs things. Whether we have Paul Manning or Stan Bateman, who's beat out Paul this last time.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ronald J. Sink, the budget director, is also the acting county administrator. And it's like I've said before, just because the stewardess landed the plane, that doesn't mean Delta is signing up stewardesses to land every plane. All right, so let's talk a little lanyap. So the judge in the Mabel Amos lawsuits, there are 3 of them. He has consolidated them into a joint civil lawsuit that stemmed from Alabama Ethics Commission Executive Director. How many times are we going to have to say Tom Albritton's name? It's unbelievable. The director of the Alabama Ethics Commission is accused of self-dealing in a trust where he is a trustee.
I mean, he's not being attacked just by like bloggers or, a journalist. I mean, the attorney general basically has come out and said there's problems over ethics.
Right. And by the way, the assistant attorney general I have over there, she's no longer an assistant attorney general because it appears to me that she was untruthful with the ethics commission. He didn't go so far to say, he said misrepresentations of material facts. That's as close as you can come to calling somebody a liar, pants on fire. Right? I mean, he's thrown the gauntlet down, and he's in the civil lawsuit.
I'm not taking sides in that spat, but, Marshall, who doesn't usually poke fights with anybody in state government, has been adamant that there are issues in ethics that he wants to see changed.
Well, the judge is going to allow them to consolidate these lawsuits, and they'll all be heard at once, which will be great for Steve Marshall and his merry band because all these private attorneys will present all the evidence, I'm sure. All right, so we were telling y'all for couple years now about the Peloton lawsuit. So this was back in 2021. The judge allows fraud claims against Peloton developers to continue. So this is a little piece of art that you can go look up for yourself. It's a PDF online. It is the deposition of Clarence Burke, where they talk all about his Costa Rica $2 million condo down in Costa Rica that is apparently owned by Wolf Creek Industries, that is also the owner of Baldwin County Sewer Service. And you'll see old Will Chasen, one of the boys in my scout troop back in the days, the plaintiff's attorney. And you see Mr. Sutley here Mr. Sutley, that's Lawrence Sutley from Orange Beach, who I was shocked to see in the courtroom during this thing because I thought he was making big rocks into little rocks. He was convicted in a federal bribery scheme where he facilitated bribes to the mayor of Orange Beach in return for permitting for, I think it was a turquoise condominium. They had a height restriction, and they, had to grease the skids a little bit and let Sutley and the mayor go stay in our condo in, I think it was Aspen, is what they got in trouble for. And, of course, the bungalow down in the French Quarter that he stayed at for a couple months during Mardi Gras.
And that's just what we know about. So the verdict in the Bellaton Pool lawsuit upheld in Montgomery. So the Alabama Supreme Court justices upheld Baldwin County jury's 2022 verdict in favor of the Homeowners Association. Isn't that nice? Turns out you cannot charge them for an amenity that they thought they bought so basically what they did was the developers, until there's a finite, there's a critical mass of people that move into the subdivision, the developer creates an LLC that acts as the homeowners association, and then they turn it over. When they turned it over, they also turned over $1 million liability for all of the improvements, being the swimming pool and clubhouse. And then they stopped paying, I think it was $3,000 a month on the note. Anyway, it all gets pretty nebulous, but, it was just another scheme by these same people who have dual citizenship in countries without extradition. And then they have special laws that say that they're not, beholden to the regulatory agencies that we have. So I don't know when people are going to wake up and figure out what's going on, but this is a good start. Maybe they'll liquidate that Costa Rican $2 million condo. I bet it's worth more than that now. It's a couple years ago. So Brandon, I hate to say I told you so, but I kind of told you so. One of the biggest stories in these United States. And I want to watch a little bit of this interview here.
What is that lawsuit that I see that's going on right now? The criminal trial with the dude from the Fugees. What is that? Do you know that story?
Yeah,
he was an FBI a snitch.
Yeah, but
what?
Okay, so that's when you know you've gone for broke as a criminal defendant. Is when you say, you know what? After talking with the Lord and the universe and all this stuff, I've decided to take the stand, and I'm going to testify that I was an FBI informant all along. You think that's sound advice, Brandon?
Yeah, that whole scenario was bizarre. That the FBI had an informant in the middle of all that, and it was the Fugees guy. I would really like to know what the FBI held over him there, Yeah,
well, I just don't. I don't think it obviously didn't fly with the jury, but there's an urban legend mixed in here. So let's keep listening to this.
I think he's a double agent or something.
What?
Because apparently Tupac said back in the day he knew he was in the FBI or something like that.
Well, Tupac said he was FBI back in the day?
So
Nobody listened to Tupac. Tupac's mother was a Black Panther. Maybe they should have listened.
They should have. So he came out, he was really an FBI agent, right?
That's crazy.
No, he was not really an
Was he really an
agent.
FBI agent?
So here's
Fuji rapper.
Fuji rapper
Testified that
Pras
he met-
testifies he met and shared information with the FBI voluntarily. Whoa.
Oh, who?
So Jeff Sessions' testimony was not exciting. The defense basically said...
Yep, remember me telling y'all about Jeff Sessions last week?
had him describe an official legal process for considering extraditing Guo at China's request. The apparent idea was to suggest that there was nothing so bad in Pras and company trying to have Guo sent back to China. Pras is testifying in his own defense, told the judge, after consulting with my attorneys and the universe, I decided that I will testify. Oh, he consulted with the universe. I like how people talk like that. He's facing 10 charges, including conspiracy, witness tampering, and failing to register as an agent of China. What?
Who the fuck is Cha? mean,
He's an
guac.
agent of China.
The black.
Yeah, he's an agent of China. Welcome to the party, pal. So, Brandon, you seen much on this? I mean, it would seem like this would be headlines all over every news agency that there is. And, of course, the Jeff Sessions angle is just perfect, right?
I mean, it's a bizarre deal. And we're talking about billionaires, espionage, massive fraud. We got a rapper in here who actually seems to be a bit character among the bigger play. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, but $100 million to the, Obama campaign in 2012, and then he gave $50 million to the Trump campaign.
And both appear to be like, we're just donating money to the winner in order to be left alone, we hope.
Well, and
investigated.
And so he would take the $100 million and he'd give $10 million to these different organizations, straw men, and they would make the donations. And apparently,
there's been an investigation showing that whole, was it Act Blue, where the Democrats, then you could go down, you could trace these people that supposedly made the donations, and it'd be like homeless people in San Francisco that darn well they didn't send any money in.
Right. For our outro, we're going to listen to the woes of Judge Clarence Thomas, one of the few people, masters in the universe, that controls your entire life.
27th, 2019, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas finished out that year's term by ruling that partisan gerrymandering was totally fine. And with that wrapped up, by the weekend, he was in full vacation mode. He hopped on a private jet and headed off to Indonesia. Judge Thomas and his wife set off on a 9-day island hopping tour on this super yacht, which comes complete with a staff and a private chef. ProPublica did the math and calculated that had Justice Thomas paid for the trip himself, it would have cost him more than $500,000, which is nearly double a Supreme Court justice's annual salary. But lucky for Justice Thomas, he didn't have to foot the bill because this man did. This is billionaire real estate magnate and Republican mega donor Harlan Crow. He owns.
All these boomers think this is perfectly fine. That's my problem with them, right?
The jet and the yacht, and he picked up that very hefty tab. And Justice Thomas didn't tell anyone. He never disclosed it. But justices are required to publicly report all gifts worth more than $415. Quote, anything of value that isn't fully reimbursed. Back in 2001, Thomas actually did disclose a gift that this Republican billionaire mega donor, Mr. Harlan Crow, had given him. It was a Bible that used to belong to Frederick Douglass and was valued at $19,000. So clearly Justice Thomas knows he is supposed to disclose this sort of thing, particularly when it comes to gifts from this guy, because this isn't the first time Mr. Crow's generosity towards Thomas has been a scandal. Mr. Crow also gave at least $500,000 to help Justice Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, start a conservative lobbying group, a group that then turned around and paid Ginny.
What's the dead pull on her? She gonna get Epsteined? She appears to be a liability to the organization.
Ginny Thomas a salary of $120,000 and later evolved into Ginny Thomas's current group, which reportedly works with groups directly involved in controversial cases before the Supreme Court. Harlan Crow also gave more than $100,000 to the Yale Law Clarence Thomas Portrait Fund, which is, quite a bit of money for a fund that maybe doesn't really need to exist. But today, ProPublica made all of that look like change, chump change, because it wasn't just that one undisclosed $500,000 vacation that ProPublica uncovered. They report that for more than 2 decades, Clarence Thomas has accepted luxury trips virtually every year from Mr. Crow without disclosing them.